1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Welcome to Crazy Chester. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Yeah, Crazy Chester's Radio Hour. Crazy Chester's Radio Hour.
Welcome to the Crazy Chester Radio Hour. I'm your host, Andreas Werner, music producer, songwriter, composer, and today you're in for a treat. My guest today is my good friend and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, Spooner Oldham. Spooner really doesn't need an introduction because he is a legend. There's no doubt about it. One of the greats. But for the ones of you who doesn't know him too well or is not too familiar with his work, let me just give you a quick rundown. Spooner cut his teeth playing sessions and writing songs in Muscle Shoals in the 60s before relocating to Memphis, where he worked at the American Sound Studio, and he continued his writing partnership with the great Dan Penn. Later he moved to Los Angeles, where he worked with a who's who of 70s artists, including Bob Dylan, Linda Ronstadt, and Neil Young. Spooner's playing can be heard on Percy Sledge's When a Man Loves a Woman, where he played the Farfisa organ, Aretha Franklin's Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, where he came up with the signature Wurlitzer electric piano part, and Wilson Pickett's Mustang Sally, along Neil Young's Harvest Moon, just to name a few. His songs have been recorded by the Box Tops, who did Cry Like a Baby, James and Bobby Purify, who did I'm Your Puppet, and the Sweet Inspirations with Sweet Inspiration. But he's written many other great songs that have been recorded by tons and tons of great artists. Most recently, he's been part of Neil Young's latest band, the Chrome Hearts, with whom he's performed at Forum 8. And if I'm not breaking any news I shouldn't be breaking here, is on his upcoming record. And I can't wait to hear it. So anyway, without further ado, please welcome the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the Forrest Gump of Muscle Shoals music, Mr. Spooner Oldham. Well, Spooner, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Well, good to be here with you, Andreas. Hope you and your family are doing well.
Yeah, I hope yours is too.
Thank you.
And, you know this, but I was a fan of yours long before we even met, because I used to get all these records and got real interest in reading the liner notes. And on so many of my favorite records, your name was on the back, Not just records from Muscle Shoals, but LA records and Memphis records and all over the place. Just recently, I listened to like the last Keith Richards album, and whose name do I see in the liner notes? Yours.
Yeah, that particular recording, I was in New York, my wife Karen, daughter Roxanne were with me, and I think it was, we were doing one of the late night TV shows. It was Candy Staten, John Paul White,
Jason Isbell. And JB and David and you.
David. Yeah. And we did it. Okay, so my day's pretty much full when I get there. I mean, do like a mic sound check in the afternoon. You do the gig at night. So I got a phone call midday. Steve Jordan on the phone said, I'm producing the next Keith Richards album. Would you come studio and overdub the organ? I don't know, my plate's pretty full today. And let me look into it. So I got off the phone, and Roxanne, my daughter, said, you need to try to do that, Dad. And she called a taxi and found out where the studio was, just a few blocks away, coincidentally. And I got over there and met him, Keith, and his lady assistant and engineer. And what I noticed, though, in the process, I'm there to overdub organ. I'm thinking, I don't see an organ, right? And within 3 minutes, there's an organ appeared from, I guess, studio and instrument rooms. You know, they equipped to move fast in New York and L.A. that way. But so we did the part, and then I was able to continue the day and do the other stuff. But yeah, I'd never met him till that day. Played on the one song.
Yeah.
And, got it done.
And also, like a couple of years ago, I watched the Academy Awards, and there comes Elton John perform his nominated song. And who do I see play the whirly behind Elton? It's you. How did that gig come about?
I'm trying to think how that came about. It's a long story, really. My daughter, Roxanne, lives in Los Angeles. She became friends with Greg
Kirsten, the producer.
and his wife and child, and they'd come to her house parties. And I met him briefly, and I didn't really know all he did. I didn't really ask any questions until this came up. The Elton John not Grammy, the Oscars thing, and I think Greg asked Roxanne, would I do that? And of course, I've learned a lot about him recently. He produces a lot of records. But I played the gig, you know. When they're really good at the Oscars. They made us all a suit, you know, custom-made suit. Of course, you leave it there when you finish, but you don't really have to worry about much. They take good care of you. And we had a rehearsal with Elton in the afternoon, and he was real congenial, you know. But yeah, that went well, I guess.
He had recorded I'm Your Puppet on a duets record in the 90s, Elton did.
Yeah, I heard that. Paul, what's his name, Paul Rogers, did a duet with him. I think it's Paul Rogers. Yeah, they did well. They did good on it. That record's been really durable. A lot of people have covered it, but I don't remember who all.
Sure, sure. And also, you know, I think that's one thing that's really remarkable. You have played with about anybody you can name, but you've already also written so many songs that people may remember, including I'm Your Puppet. And you're one of the few, like, non-artists to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that is quite remarkable, too. Who did induct you into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Who held the speech for you?
Oh, man. The guy Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer, right.
Yeah, he used to be the sidekick with David Letterman.
Yeah.
And I remember, Paul called me on the phone. I live in Rogersville, Alabama, and he called me one day after I was told I'd be inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009. And so he called, says, I'm going to do your, whatever you call that, introduction that evening and he says, I know about the I Never Loved a Man, Aretha Franklin, but what's something else you've done? I said, well, there's Mustang Sally, there's When a Man Loves a Woman, and another song, Natural Woman. And I said, Paul, you know what that organ was on When a Man Loves a Woman, Percy Sledge record? He said, no. What was it? I said, the Far Piece organ. he said, "I'll get one." That was his next sentence. And he did have one, you know. But he did good, I thought, introducing me to the people who didn't know me, you know.
Yeah. And it's like, also, you know, the other thing is that always amazes me. It basically started out for you guys cutting R&B here,
Right.
but then it became almost anything you can imagine. I mean, from you tour with Bob Dylan for a few years, and you played a lot, you know, behind Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, stuff like that.
Right.
So, do you think a lot of these people, like, just really liked what you did on those R&B records, and they said, "I would like some of that on
I
mine"?
don't have a clue, Andrews. That's a good question. I always wondered how I got into those different arenas. Well, some of them I know the stories, but I never asked them. They never told me why I was on board with a tour or a record. They never said anything. Will you do it? That was a question. So I never knew from whence they were coming from or what motivated them to do it. The Dylan thing I sort of know because I didn't play on Slow Train Coming album they did in Muscle Shoals Sound Studio by the river. But after that album was finished, came out, was sort of a hit. Barry Pickett, Jerry Wexler produced. I got a phone call, would I do, from Bob himself, would I do a tour for 3 months or whatever. Needed to know what I'd charge. I said, well, I don't know. I need a day or two to think about that. He wanted to know right now. So I gave him a figure. And in the mid-tour, I asked for a raise. After he had gotten the newspaper saying, I like this band, they don't ask for a raise. The next day, I got double, you know.
Yeah, and then you cut the Saved album with him here at Muscle Shoals Sound, too.
Yeah, same place, same building over by the river. Yeah, we were like a touring band at that point. We were out playing shows, gigs, and across the country, and some Canadian gigs. And
that was like Jim Keltner, Tim Drummond, Fred Tackett.
Correct, yeah. Regina Havis.
Who's now Regina McCrary.
McCrary, yeah. She was, and Terry Young and his wife, Mrs. Young.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great band. And just a couple, 3 years ago, a lot of recordings from that period came out on a box set that Bob Dylan put out. So it was really great to see what else you did with him besides the Saved album.
Yeah, I don't even remember doing anything else. Maybe I did.
I think it was just some outtakes from the sessions and live recordings from that tour.
Yeah. We did do, I remember in Toronto, Canada, it was funny, the Bob Dylan tour. I was told one day he had like 3 accountants on the bus with us. And someone said one day, we're going to record this, videotape it in Toronto. Be like a 3-camera thing, really nice. It didn't have a backer name, or we're doing it for whatever reason. It had nothing of that. It's just like we're going to do it. And so the girls all be wearing black, and like for you to wear black. I said, well, I don't have any black slacks with me, and I'm not going to buy any. If y'all want to pay for them, I'll go shopping. So they gave me $60 and bought some slacks, black slacks, you know.
And you were ready for the video shoot. What made you want to move to LA in the first place?
Well, at the time I moved to Los Angeles, I had left and moved from Muscle Shoals to Memphis a couple of years. I worked at a place called American Recording Studio with
Chip Smallman.
Chip Smallman. Don Crew was one of the owners, but he was a farmer. A nice guy, and And Dan Penn, my songwriting friend and buddy, had moved there probably a year before I did. And so I moved to Memphis, got married, and then that's when I moved to Los Angeles. I think, I don't want to tell on people, but Memphis was sort of on the downstroke because Martin Luther King had been killed. The blacks didn't change, the whites didn't change, the air changed. I could feel the end in sight for me, for the productivity that we had experienced wasn't going to be there for a little while. So I took off to Los Angeles and got married.
Yeah. One of the coolest sessions you did at American was the one for the Sweet Inspirations, when you and Dan Penn wrote Sweet Inspiration for him. What do you remember about that session? Because that's a great story.
Well, I remember Dan and I sitting on the sofa at American Studio listening to this process of, they were recording a song. I wasn't on the session, he wasn't on the session. I don't remember the details of that, but there we are sitting there, and I had heard them before, and I knew they were great. So I'm excited that they're going to get their own recording. And whatever I'm hearing I didn't like. I thought, they're much better than what they're getting. So I thought, we said to each other, I don't know who said to what, but we're going to try to write them a song. And okay, so Dan and I went upstairs next door, which is part of the American Studio, but it's an office space. And I got up there, and I walking up, I remember Dan said, you got any titles, ideas for a song? I said, well, what about I Need Your Sweet Inspiration? Because the girls had just been named Sweet Inspirations. And I thought, making us of a good song, possibly, title. And so we within an hour and a half, we had written a song. I had it, there's only a guitar up there was no piano. And I had this little riff going, and we wrote it, and brought it down. The girls liked it immediately. They learned it immediately and were singing it immediately. And some of the band members were still there. I think the powers that be, the producers, maybe, I don't know, Jerry Wicks or Tom Dowd, whoever, Rick Mardine, maybe, I don't know who all was there, but Atlantic Records people went to dinner. So, and Reggie, he said, I played the guitar part once. He said, would you play that again for me? And I played it again. He said, won't you do it?
So you ended up playing it on the record.
Yeah, and within 2 times we played it through. They had it, and Dan was in the control room with that machine. He tells Tom Dowd later, he plays it. We play it to them after dinner. Dan said, I didn't change any buttons, Tom, but I just pushed the chords. And that was it,
And the rest is history. It was a hit.
Yeah, that was it.
While the producers were eating.
Yeah. We didn't need them, they didn't need us.
Yeah. And there are so many great stories, I love the Cry Like a Baby story, and you've told that many times, so we don't necessarily have to talk about it, but that is a great story, too.
Well, in case whoever's listening out there, and these are, it's a long story, really, but I'll tell some of it. Dan tells it well, and we've done these duet songwriting things out. Few shows, but it's been a while now. He's out doing shows by himself. He's doing good. But Cry Like a Baby, okay, Dan Penn, my friend, songwriting buddy, was a producer in Memphis at American. He produced The Letter, the Box Tops record. And one day he says to me, the record company has called me every day for 3 weeks. They want another record. And people sent me songs, but I don't think any of them fit them. So would you try to help me write something for them? Okay, sure, surely. And this particular evening, we designated time to get together and write. It was dark already, I think, and studio was shut down for the day. And we went through our one-liner titles, ideas. Most of it ended up in the trash within the minutes. And a lot of times we'd come in with a few ideas written down. And so we got to the end of the bucket, tired of taking all the coffee we could drink. And I think we went across the street, little barbecue breakfast joint, nobody there but the cook and us. And we had basically locked the doors, the studio, turned off the lights, turned off the power. We ordered breakfast. We're going home, give it up. And we ordered the food, and I was tired. I just laid my head down on the table on my arms, and I look up at Dan. I said, I could just cry like a baby, not thinking anything beyond that. And he said, what did you say? And that surprised me. What did you say? I said, well, I could cry like a baby. He said, I like that. I didn't expect to hear those words. I like that. But within minutes, we had it written. He said, walking across the street, I think we had, without an instrument, just talking, I think we had, when I think about the good love you gave me, I cry like a baby. Living without you drive me crazy, I cry like a baby. I think we had that much to start on. He said, I'm going to turn this little 60-minute tape on, and we'll just go out there. You turn on the organ, I'll get my guitar, and we'll just write it and tape it as we go. So time the tape ended, we had the song written, and you know, I was so tired. I didn't know what we had really, except we finished the song. And then I don't know if it's that day, that morning, but Alex Chilton came to a little office there, and we put the tape on. He heard it. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect, you know. He smiled and shook his hand across the table and said, thank you. So I knew he liked it. And, but yeah, it was the next thing happened on that record of interest to me was, okay, the band gets together, you know, and Reggie Young going to play guitar. And over there in the dark corner, there's a like UPS or FedEx or mail box, cardboard box. And well, anybody know what that is? No, I didn't order anything. So I think Reggie went over there and brought it out to the light. It was addressed to him. Reggie, he opened it up and there's I think a choral electric sitar. He plugged it up. Here we go. It was on that song, just coincidentally, you know. But what a day that was, to get all those surprises in one day, you know.
Yeah.
You know. But someone told me later they thought Jerry Wexler had sent it to him as a gift.
Okay.
Because one made to wonder why it's there in the first place, you know.
It's good timing for sure.
Yeah, it couldn't have been a better timing, you know. Yeah, it was really an integral part of that record, I think, you know.
Yeah, and you know, you wrote so many great songs with Dan, and that duo record, the live record, Moments from the Theater, is still one of my favorites,
Well,
you know,
thanks
just
for
yours and
listening,
his
yeah.
songs. And
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about the songs you wrote with Dan. One thing that I would like to talk to you about is some of the stuff you wrote with Freddie Weller, because you had a lot of success writing with him too. And, you know, some of these songs you wrote with him are so great and maybe don't get quite as much, you know, airplay nowadays than some of the stuff you did with Dan. But do you remember how you hooked up with Freddie and kind of how that collaboration
I
started?
do remember Freddie Weller and I and Karen, my wife, we just gotten married recently. At that time, we were in a apartment complex in Burbank, California, and I think it's Burbank. And sort of, if I recall, saw him on the sidewalk there one day. We chatted, and he's from Atlanta, and I'm from Alabama, and so yeah, we had that Southern connection to start with. You know, we weren't Western, we weren't Eastern, so we sort of hit it off. But I also learned that he was in a band at that moment called Part of the Raiders, and I think I went out to see him one night playing with them at Knott's Berry Farm or something. Anyway, somehow our conversation rolled around to maybe we should try to write something together, and we did. Of course, he was the beauty of that relationship was he was the recording artist on Columbia Records, and he just had a hit called Games People Play, which is a Joe South song that he covered. It became a hit for him. Well, it was about that time I met him. We started writing, and but I think the song, you know, we wrote several together. I remember one night, by this time I'd bought a house. We had bought a house in Glendale, California, and he came over. My wife Karen had cooked a big Southern meal, like, you know, whatever, pork chops, cornbread, beans, and potatoes, and that kind of thing. So we enjoyed that, and then she'd usually go off to her bedroom, watch TV, and we'd piano in the living room we'd write. So this particular night, we wrote 3 songs that he recorded. Eventually, I mean, Another Night of Love, Roadmaster, and Lonely Women Make Good Lovers. They all 3 were chart records. We wrote those all in one night, you know.
That's quite a good accomplishment right there. And I've seen you perform "Lonely Women Make Good Lovers," which is, I love it when you do it by yourself too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that song is so durable, and people still compliment me in passing. You know, they learned I wrote that, and that's the one they remember. I say, and I keep hearing it on the oldest country stations. You know.
Did you and Freddie relocate to Nashville around the same time?
I think so. It was. I don't think it was intentional or had nothing to do with each other, but maybe coincidentally.
Did you continue working with him in Nashville?
I remember he came to the house. I lived on Wallace Lane in Green Hills area. I had a house there, and I remember he came over one night in particular, and we wrote something. I don't remember what we wrote, but I don't think we continued that for long, that process. I don't remember being too much in Nashville.
But both Dan was in Nashville too, and Donnie Fritz was too, I think, at the same time.
Yeah, true.
So one thing I'm quite intrigued about, because I also, work with Buzz Cason a lot, and you and Dan had the Pine Brothers studio there. What was that? Because I don't think people know a whole lot about that.
Well, I don't think I had anything to do with it. I think that was Dan's baby.
Oh, I thought that was you and him for some reason.
No, anything that he does and I do, we somehow get connected eventually. But
Okay.
it's just word of mouth. I say that. I could have paid due rent. I don't remember. But it was nothing to try to do anything in particular, not to do business as such. Maybe the writing place and
Yeah.
demo. But, I don't remember much about it either.
Yeah, I
I
know.
remember one song we did called Mercy Bay that we demoed there. I remember Carl Himmel, the drummer for him, just happened to be breezing through. He played on the demo, but I don't remember much about the Pine Brothers days.
Yeah. But I know that you and Donnie recorded a few of your demos at Creative Workshop next door. I remember that because I saw the tape boxes. That's it.
Yeah, it was a good studio. I don't remember. I didn't play or work there too much. Hardly ever, to be honest. But Buzz did administrate mine and Dan's and Donnie's. Well, I don't know about Donnie. Mine and Dan's catalog.
No, he did
song.
Donnie's too.
So yeah, he had this. He had a company called Southern
Writers Group.
Writers Group.
Yeah. Yes. And I guess, your friendship with Donnie went back, I guess, to the early 60s and the early incarnation of recording here in Florence, right?
Yeah, Donnie. I guess we were teenagers when we met. It was a short story, and yeah, he was upstairs with Tom Stafford and David Briggs, and I sort of came in, met them there. I think I knew David Briggs. I knew the piano player. He and I played an 8th grade piano duet. Yeah, I've known Donnie a long time.
I'm intrigued by those very early Muscle Shoals days because you were like, you and Dan and Donnie were like, I guess along like David Briggs and Jerry Kerrigan and Norbert Putnam and Peanut Montgomery and Terry Thompson and it was like that, first group who was around when like I guess Arthur Alexander was part of that too.
Yeah, I remember that room, and had an upright piano and a little concertone 15-inch per second tape recorder with the stereo effects built in, which was like a professional machine at the time, mono, but it was a good machine. And the first time I'd been in a room, it had a glass or partition between the control room and the little studio room. So anyway, it was set up to record, sort of. But I remember Arthur did a song called Sally Sue Brown.
Yeah.
I forgot who wrote it. I think it's Terry Thompson, maybe.
Yeah.
Peanut, I don't know. Some local people. Good song. And I'm like a teenager, and I'm sitting up there. They had booked a session for Arthur. I think the record came out on Phillips International label. And what I recall about that day was I'm sitting there on the sofa, and up comes the stair. There's a stairs go up to there above the drugstore. And Pig Robbins and his friend escort carrying him up, walking up the stairs, and he's going to play piano, which he did. So yeah, he was a real legendary Nashville player, So I'm get to see a real guy playing a real song first time.
Yeah, but it didn't take that much longer for you to get your first session work either, right?
I don't think, I started my regular session plan for demos. I started with Rick Hall over at Tobacco Warehouse, where he was basically doing demos and songwriters publishing stuff. And then we built that new building, and I was what I call a second generation fame house band. The first generation I call David Briggs, Norbert Putnam, Jerry Kerrigan, and Terry Thompson, Junior Lowe, occasionally. But I overdubbed organ on the first generation fame house band. The first two hits, like You Better Move On, Arthur Zander, and Steal Away Jimmy Hughes. So yeah, I was in on pretty early session work there at Fame.
Was it a 4-track studio, 4-track tape machine by that
I
time?
didn't pay attention. What I did was watch the needles.
And they could overdub it because I guess with the mono machine you couldn't
Well,
overdub.
we had to have 2 mono machines.
Okay, so
They
you
call
bounce
it-
from one to the other.
Yeah, that's what happened, I think, in the early days. And you tried to keep the overdub down to no more than 3 generations because you start losing sound quality.
Sure.
So, but those guys, that first generation Fame House Band, they played on a lot of stuff that I didn't, like Everybody, Tommy Rowe, and a bunch of stuff, you know. But anyway, so the fire was built by the time I got in there as a regular guy, you know,
Yeah.
with Roger Hawkins and Jimmy Johnson and Junior Lowe, and local horn sessions. Sometimes we'd use Memphis horns. The
Yeah.
combination of Memphis and Muscle Shoals. They've always worked good together, Memphis and Muscle Shoals.
Yeah.
And Nashville.
Sure.
And,
Did you already write songs by that time? Like you started doing some of these sessions?
no, I remember in my mind's eye, the first thing I got excited about as a songwriter, because it was going up the rhythm and blues charts a little bit, was Let's Do It Over by Joe Simon, that Dan Penn and I wrote that song. And he came to Fame from Los Angeles to record some songs. And I got to play on that stuff. So I'm excited, you know, I'm a youngster really, but there's a bonus to this songwriting. You're going up the charts. That means there's money coming someday. So what happened on my first music business experience was I'd go out in the lobby and read the billboard, and it had a full-page ad, VJ Records, #3 record company in the world this month. Of course, it had Beatles' first record and other stuff. So, and this Joe Simon record is on VJ Records, little 45, and next month I think they were like, it's expensive, those little full-page ads, and I'm thinking, boy, they're doing really good. I'm giving stuff to look forward to. They're going to send me money someday. And I think maybe the next month, we're in the #2 record company in the world, and the next month they went bankrupt. So I did get record royalties, and I did get BMI, radio airplay,
Yeah.
but I got no record sales monies. So that was my first experience with money in the record business.
Yeah. Do you remember, you guys did a 45 as Spooner and the Spoons.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. It was at that time I was working, playing sessions, writing songs at Fame Studio, Muscle Shoals, and Dan Penn and I had written this song called "Wish You Didn't Have to Go," and I thought, well, to be an artist and have a record 45, what I want to do, I was going to do that song. So I think, well, the thing I should do, I'm not used to singing, is get my favorite singers locally, which was Louis Robinson, Ron English. I think Dan maybe sang on it. I sang on it. So I had 4 singers around one microphone, U87, I think. And the band, you know, I hired the band. I paid full studio rate at Fame. I produced it, you know, paid for it. And I think Rick carried it to Nashville and leased it to Tolly Records or something, VJ Affiliate Associated, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I do remember it. It got a lot of local airplay, and
Yeah.
that's about it.
But another record that you produced, or couple of records that you produced that I really like, is when you worked with Ralph Soul Jackson. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. He was living in, I think he still does, in Phoenix City, Alabama. And, I think Rick Hall had worked with him a little bit, but I don't know how I got in the picture, except I had this thought about English rock and roll song called Sunshine of Your Love.
Like Cream.
And I wanted to do the Muscle Shoals R&B type version of it. And there again, I just think I paid for it, produced it, and did what I wanted to do.
That's a cool record for anyone who doesn't know it. Need to look it up. So do you had like the arrangement kind of in your head already, kind of how you wanted to do it?
No, I just had my on the Cream record. It was guitars, so I just sort of mimicked the guitar sort of on the keyboard. It wasn't a piano and organ. It was some kind of electronic keyboard, like a clavichord.
Yeah.
So, I just wanting true to the song, but different sounds than I've already heard. So let's let everybody play what they wanted to play. Let's kick it off, and here I go,
Yeah.
Jump in there and do whatever you want.
Yeah. You're talking about like interesting sounds. Didn't you do like kind of interesting stuff to the piano? Was it, I don't know if it was a Mustang Sally or one of them, where you kind of treated the piano, did you, I don't know, to get that
I
sound?
think I get a lot of response from Mustang Sally, the Wilson Pickett record, because it was recorded over at Fame Studio, and that day there was a lot of people in the control room, and maybe Rick Hall, maybe other people. Well, Tom Dowd, I think, at the board, and Rick at the board. And so it's monaural recording, so I'm sitting there, I'm hired to play on this keyboard on this Wilson Pickett record. So, and I heard a little demo of Sir Matt Rice, and I noticed it didn't have any keyboards, and the version we did had very little similarity to what we heard on the demo. But so I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I need to be creative here. I wonder what it sounds like. I'm thinking to myself, if I pretended I'm a Harley Davidson motorcycle and I'm riding through the studio, what would that sound like? So I just whop, 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 revving up the engine. And Rick, he picked up on it, turned the echo up big time. It was an effect in the middle of the song. I'm playing little notes through the song, and then all of a sudden it stops, and I'm whack, whack, whack. But even though it was a motorcycle in my head, it became a car all of a sudden, I guess.
Yeah.
You know.
For someone like me, and I think a lot of people listening is like who've like listened to this song all of their life, and it's like, I wonder what they did. I remember like I was talking to this friend of mine, and we, after you guys were at Fame and you left for American and some of the other guys to form Muscle Shoals Sound. Then you had like the Fame Gang was like the next rhythm section, and they made their album, and they some really interesting sound. And then like I called up Clayton Ives, hey, how did you guys do it? Well, we ran the tenor sax through a Leslie speaker or something like that, just to kind of come up with interesting sounds, And then other record, I think it's really some interesting sounds on, is the album you made, the Potluck album, like you made in the 70s, where you recorded some of the songs, you wrote for other people and some new songs. And what's the story behind that album?
Well, everybody there has a different story, I'm sure. But my take on that album was, I kept getting called. I'm in Alabama and getting phone calls from Joe Wilson, recording engineer, keyboard player from Atlanta. He's moved out to Los Angeles, and he's trying to get me on board. He said, well, these people have bought, they're Liberace's managers, but they bought this.
And you played on the Liberace
Yeah,
album.
yes, I did on a couple, I think. So they're going to open this studio. They bought the building from Mike Curb, who had a place called Sidewalk Productions, and they're going to make it into a recording studio, which is still there, called Producers Workshop, still. But we've sort of set that up from scratch, all the musicians. And the story that got me out there was, okay, you know, why would I want to move to L.A.? And it was like, Richard Bennett's he's a teenage guitarist here in Los Angeles. He'd be on part of the band, house band. Dennis St. John moving up here from Atlanta. He'd been in Roy Orbison's band. Let's see. There's a bass player, Emory Gordy Jr. Mm-hmm. He's going to move here from Atlanta, play bass. We're trying to get together like a Muscle Shoals, Memphis house band situation where singers can come in and play along. And but the thing that sort of caught my attention, you know, you get a weekly salary. And also, you can play anywhere all over town, no strings attached. So I just got married, and it's sort of becoming a little. The thing that got me really was, and the engineer-producer guy will be, he wrote a song and produced a record by Brenda Holloway called Every Little Bit Hurts. And I love that record. So anyway, I got out there, okay, we got the studio set up, the mic placed, the baffles set up, and no one of the four of us is really an artist in their own right. We're all sidemen. So I guess they knew I'd written a few songs and sing a little bit. And so it's something to do, really. Let's do an album on me. You know, somebody said, okay, let's go. Let's start. Come on. You know,
And that's
and
how
the ongoing process after that. But yeah, we need to play some music. And what do? You know, as a newcomer. You know.
So we're almost at the end here, but one thing I would like to ask you is, you know, everybody loves and knows, like, you know, Lonely Women Make Good Lovers, I Met Her at Church, Tears Me Up, and I'm Your Puppet, and what are some of your songs that are some of your favorites that might have not been the biggest hits? Do you have a couple that you think, well, you know, this one is really one of that's close to my heart?
Out of left field.
Oh, that's a good one too.
You know, I've probably gotten more compliments and more words from people across the country on that song than anything. Hey, you know, like, you know, yeah. One of the lesser known probably of the Percy Sledge catalog. I don't know how that ranked. I don't know anything about that, but I just love that song. I love the way he did it. I love the way the record was made, you know. Any other, you know, I just got, you never know how things are, I remember Jerry Wexler called me or asked me would I would be interested when I lived in Memphis, doing a Barbara Lynn record, producing, you know, and okay, so, but 2 days ago I got a record in the mail, one we did in 1968 in Memphis, that unreleased, was a 45 from Spain. So Dan Penn and I wrote it, but it doesn't have our credits on, so I got to clear that up. I got to tell them who wrote it.
Sure.
Called Unloved, Unwanted. But that's a good one.
Yeah. And you're still writing, I think, more recently you've written a lot of songs with your first cousin, Mark Narmore, and Carl Holder. And Mark is, a great friend of mine, and we recorded some of those songs that you wrote on one of Mark's album. So maybe you can say a couple, 3 words about Mark and maybe tie it in with, because it's also family, and I know family is important to you.
Oh yeah, Mark Narmore is my first cousin. My mom, Marie, his mom, Bet, they were sisters. And he, he's quite talented with the keyboards and singing and songwriting. And, I just watched him, and he keeps growing and enjoying what he's doing. And so, yeah, he's a real talent. He's had some hits, What I Love About Sunday and something else.
Yeah, Moon Over Georgia.
Moon Over Georgia, I like that one, yeah. It was clever writing,
Yeah, and I know you're a real, strong influence on him. He has memories going back few, like visiting the family when you lived like out in L.A. and
Yeah, I
playing
think
the piano.
stuff he remembers that I'd forgotten really was, I guess early on when he was a teenager or whatever, I'd somehow play him some demos that I'd participated in. And so, he saw the inside of what was going on from a distance before he ever started. So I think he appreciated my input, sort of.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're just amazed by, like Mark and I, and a lot of other people too, is like, Donnie to a certain degree too. It seems like you like have the shortest distance from like your soul to your hands when you play. To me it seems like when I hear you play, it's all like soul. It's not like overthinking stuff, it's just like, it's all you. And I think everybody just loves that, because a lot of people just like, they might overthink it here and there, and you're just like you, and that's how we love it,
I think part of my inspiration was started in the early days, say for instance at Fame Studio, where you got the big voices of theater speakers for playback. And Dan Penn and I had access to that studio. He had a key. He was friends with Rick Hall, and we'd get in there and write. Well, he and I would do the demos, just he and I, and later we'd add a band, or we'd get with a band. But hearing that stuff, hearing your efforts blown up big time, big sound, you're either going to like it or dislike it. You're going to self-edit. So I have years and years of self-editing. So I just know what I like to hear. I'm not going to give you something I don't like to hear.
Yeah. And I think probably one of the most memorable licks was the Aretha lick on I Never Loved a Man. Like, this story is so, well told, that you basically saved the session because they couldn't quite find the groove, and then you somehow made up that lick, and there it was.
Yeah, that I remember back at Fame in those days. I lived in Center Star, which is 30-minute drive from Muscle Shoals. Well, and I'm not a get on the phone talking person very often. I don't really, considering that I communicate with songs and music pretty good, I don't communicate with anybody much. Not too much. So anyway, I go in the lobby. Back in those days, it was like a high school chalkboard, big old chalkboard. And in the month of January, the first week, Aretha Franklin. And so I just get in the car and drive home. I had one album by her, which was a Columbia album. I didn't really care for it, to be honest. But I appreciated her voice. And so day one, excited about being a part of this thing. We don't know what's going to happen. But that first song pulled out there was stumbled on. Everybody's scratching their head, and luckily, I think me and God got together and started playing. And I remember simultaneously Chip mumbling over there in the corner on the guitar, Dan Penn over here. He's not on the session, but he's in there. He's bringing a song called "Do Right Woman" that's going to be finished that day. He and Chip wrote it. And so I came up that riff, and I heard Dan and Chip simultaneously. Spooner's got it, and we just everybody, we started playing. We had a bassist to go on, a timing, and so I just felt blessed that I was given that, whatever.
And that was Aretha's first big hit.
Yeah, it exploded in big time.
And then after that, you would go up to New York a lot to do more albums with her.
Yeah, did 3 or 4 albums in New York with her. And they were all fun. A lot of good players I met up there, like King Curtis. He had a horn section. And sometimes Wayne Jackson, Andrew Love would come up, and Charles Chalmers from Memphis. And it was all fun times,
Yeah.
I think that studio got torn down last week.
Okay.
Atlantic, New York.
That's too bad.
Yeah, well,
All right, I have one last question for you, and that is, there's a gospel song of yours that I really love. I think is it called Jesus Take the Wheel?
I think you're probably talking about a song Karen, my wife, and I wrote called When I Let Jesus Take My Hand.
That's it, yeah.
Well, yeah, we were driving from California to Alabama, I think, to go to my parents' house for Christmas. And on the drive, what we would do normally driving across country, we did it 2 or 3 or 4 times. My goal was to go 500 miles a day and stop, get chicken, a motel, hotel, get some rest, eat breakfast, hit the road, do 500 more miles. So it was about a 4-day trip at that rate. And about the 2nd or 3rd day, we both got a fever, sick, flu, and we got on that 2-lane road from Highway 72 from Memphis to Shoals area, and the trees are hanging over the road, and there's really no room for air, and I always spooked about meeting a trailer truck because you might get run off the road, I felt. Anyway, during that, and in the fog, it was nighttime, and the fog just surrounded us. And so I was down to about 3 or 4 miles an hour, there's nowhere really to pull off the road and rest. So just sort of look at the white lines occasionally. And I said, Karen, see if there's pencil and paper in the glove compartment. Got this idea. So I said a line, she wrote it down, and then she came back with a line, wrote it down. I said another line, she wrote it down, she said another. It just went on like 10 minutes, it's written. But and when we finished it, it sounded like a science fiction story, but it's true, not made up. But the fog lifted down the highway, like just clear like a spotlight sun. And the side, the fog was still there. I couldn't quite. So I figured we were blessed at that moment with what we were doing. But the song is, called When I Let Jesus Take My Hand. And sort of self-explanatory,
Yeah. Well, Spooner, thank you so much for spending this last hour with me.
Well, thank you, Andreas, for helping me get some of that stuff back out in the open there.
Thank you for your music, your friendship, the adventures we've been able to do together, and I wish you just all the best of luck with everything that's ahead of you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to keep doing music and writing. I want to do an album yet. I figure every 50 years an artist ought to do an album. That's my thoughts.
I would love to hear that. All right.
So I'm trying to accumulate some songs, you know.
Yeah.
But thank you. Take care. Hi to your family. Hope to see you again soon.
And that was my conversation with the great Spooner Oldham. Thank you so much to Spooner for sitting down with me and sharing all of these great stories. And thank you to you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like wherever you're listening, and check out some of our other episodes with musicians, songwriters, producers from Muscle Shoals, Nashville, and beyond. That's it for today. Thanks for listening, and see you next time. Crazy Chester Radio Hour was created and produced by me, Andreas Werner, producer, songwriter, composer for the Muscle Shoals Heart. The theme song is performed by Jimmy Hall of Wet Willie and the Funky Chester Rhythm Section. It was recorded at Creative Workshop Studio in Nashville, Tennessee. You can find out more about the podcast and myself at crazychesterrecords.com or on Instagram at crazychesterrecords.